You got some money sitting in SCHD right now. Maybe it's $1,000 you finally scraped together. Maybe it's $10,000 you've been too nervous to touch. Maybe it's $100,000 and you still don't feel like it's enough. And that number in your head right now, the one telling you whether it's enough or not, it's probably wrong. Meet Ray. Ray is 46. 2 nights ago, he opened his brokerage app for the 4th time that week and stared at the same number, $10,000, sitting in SCHD. And he did the same math he always does. Is this enough? Am I already behind? Should I have started 10 years ago, back when everyone else apparently figured this out? Here's the honest answer, and it's not what Ray wants to hear at first. $10,000 in SCHD will not fund anyone's retirement by itself. Neither will $1,000. But by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly which of 3 tiers your money is standing in right now, what it's actually producing today, and the one formula that tells you, using your own numbers, not mine, whether SCHD alone gets you to retirement or whether it's one piece of a bigger picture. Here's where we're going. First, I'll show you exactly what $1,000, $10,000, and $100,000 in SCHD produce in real income today. No rounding up. Second, I'll show you the mistake almost every investor at Ray's stage makes when they look at that number and panic. Third, we'll run the actual growth math on all 3 tiers so you can see where they go over 10, 15, and 20 years. And at the end, I'll hand you the exact formula to calculate your own number, so you're not taking my word for any of this. You're running your own math. Let's start with what's true right now, this week. SCHD trades around $33.47 a share, pays a trailing dividend of about $1.05 a share over the last 12 months, and that works out to a yield of roughly 3.1%. I'm citing the exact source and the exact date on this one, because this audience checks the math, and you should too. SCHD's price and yield move daily, so if you're watching this more than a few weeks after I recorded it, pull the current numbers yourself before you do anything with them. At that price, here's what each tier actually buys you. The starter tier, $1,000, gets you about 29.9 shares. That produces roughly $31 a year in dividends, about $2.61 a month. I want you to sit with that number because I know it feels almost insulting next to the word retirement. That's the point. The starter tier isn't a retirement plan. It's proof that the mechanism works. Proof you can hold, watch, pay you real cash every quarter, and build a habit around. The builder tier, $10,000, Ray's number, gets you about 298.8 shares. That's roughly $314 a year, or about $26 a month. Still not retirement income, but it's now real enough to matter. That's a phone bill, a streaming subscription, gas money. It's the tier where dividend investing stops being theoretical. The foundation tier, $100,000, gets you about 2,988 shares. That's roughly $3,137 a year, or about $261 a month today, with zero growth. Stack that next to the average Social Security retirement benefit, which the Social Security Administration puts at $2,071 a month as of January 2026, and you start to see a real income picture forming. Not the whole picture, but a real piece of it. That's the snapshot. 3 tiers, 3 very different outcomes, all from the same ETF. Now, if you stopped right there, you'd draw exactly the wrong conclusion about your own money. And that's the mistake almost everyone makes with this math. Let's fix that before we go any further. Here's the mistake. People look at a number like $26 a month, or even $261 a month, and judge their entire retirement future off that one frozen snapshot. Today's yield, today's share count, today's dividend. I call this the snapshot trap, and it's the single biggest reason people in Ray's position feel behind when they are not. SCHD isn't a static number. It's raised its dividend for 14 straight years since it launched in October 2011, and over just the last decade, that dividend has grown at roughly 10.4% a year, according to reporting from Morningstar and Yahoo Finance. On top of that, the fund itself, price growth, plus reinvested dividends combined, has averaged a 13.39% annualized total return since inception, per data from stockanalysis.com. Now, I want to be careful with that 13.39% number because that's a real question you should be asking right now. Is that actually going to keep happening? Honestly, I don't know, and neither does anyone else. That window includes one of the strongest bull markets in modern history, and past performance is not a promise. So instead of showing you one rosy number, I'm going to show you 2 scenarios for everything that follows. A conservative case using 8% a year, which is closer to a long-run stock market average, and SCHD's own actual historical case at 13.39%. You'll see both. You decide which one you trust more for your own planning. Once you stop judging your money by a single frozen number and start thinking in years instead of days, all three tiers start moving, some of them a lot. Let's actually run it. I'm calling this the Runway effect, because the further out you look, the more distance opens up between where you are today and where compounding dividend growth and reinvestment can actually take you. Quick mechanism check, because this matters for every number that follows. When SCHD pays a dividend and you have DRIP, Dividend Reinvestment, turned on, that cash doesn't land in your checking account. It automatically buys more shares of SCHD right then at whatever the price is that day. Next quarter, you're collecting a dividend on those new shares too, plus the growing dividend on everything you already owned. That's the entire engine behind every number below. Turn DRIP off, and these numbers don't happen. You'd just be pocketing the cash instead of growing the share count. Let's take Ray's Builder tier, $10,000, and assume he keeps adding $200 a month, which is realistic for someone in his income bracket. Here's what that grows to. Reinvesting dividends the entire way. At 10 years, $58,786 in the conservative 8% case, or $87,825 in SCHD's historical 13.39% case. At 15 years, $102,277 conservative, or $187,866 historical. At 20 years, $167,072 conservative, or $382,550 historical. Now translate that into monthly income at today's roughly 3.1% yield. In 20 years, that $10,000 starting point turns into somewhere between $437 a month and $1,000 a month in dividend income alone, again depending on which growth assumption plays out, and assuming SCHD's yield stays roughly where it is today, which is its own assumption you should question. Now let's look at the foundation tier, $100,000, with no further contributions at all, just growth, over 15 years. Conservative 8% grows to about $330,692, generating roughly $865 a month in dividends. Historical 13.39% grows to about $736,970, generating roughly $1,927 a month. Here's a number worth sitting with. The Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances, the most recent one covers 2022, found that households aged 65 to 74 who actually have a retirement account carry a median balance of $200,000. Ray's foundation tier, growing for 15 years even under the conservative case, ends up north of $330,000. You don't need the historical growth rate to beat the median American retirement account. You need time and consistency. And just so nobody feels left out, the starter tier, $1,000 plus $50 a month for 20 years. $34,378 conservative, or $74,125 historical, producing somewhere between $90 and $194 a month in dividend income by the time you're done. Still not a retirement plan on its own, but it's not nothing either. And it proves the tier you start in isn't the tier you have to stay in, so now you've seen where each tier can actually go. But growth alone still doesn't answer the question in this video's title. For that, you need one more test, and it's the test almost everybody skips. I call this the dividend coverage test, and it's simple. Does your projected dividend income stacked against your other income sources actually cover what you spend? Not what you hope to spend, what you actually spend. The Bureau of Labor Statistics 2024 Consumer Expenditure Survey put average annual household spending at $78,535, about $6,545 a month across all households, not just retirees. That's your baseline to test against, and you should replace it with your own real number if you track your spending. Now run the coverage test on Ray's foundation tier. $100,000 growing for 15 years lands him somewhere between $865 and $1,927 a month in dividend income. Add the average Social Security check of $2,071 a month, and Ray's combined income lands somewhere between roughly $2,900 and $4,000 a month, covering somewhere between 44% and 61% of that average household's spending from SCHD and Social Security alone, before any 401k, pension, or part-time income even enters the picture. There's one more piece almost nobody talks about here, and it's a genuinely obscure one. A lot of that dividend income might not get taxed at all. Under 2026 IRS rules, qualified dividends are taxed at 0% for single filers with taxable income up to $49,450 and married couples filing jointly up to $98,900. SCHD's dividends generally qualify for this treatment as long as you've held the shares more than 60 days around the ex-dividend date, a rule buried in IRS Publication 550 that almost nobody checks. For a lot of retirees living primarily off dividends and Social Security, that foundation tier income could land entirely inside the 0% bracket. That's the real test, not, is my number big? Is my number, combined with what else is coming in, actually covering what I spend, and how much of it survives taxes? One more lens worth knowing, especially if part of your plan involves selling shares instead of just living off the natural dividend. Bill Bengen, the actual economist who created the 4% rule back in 1994, revised his own number upward in 2025 to 4.7% after rebuilding his model around a more diversified portfolio and testing across shorter and longer time horizons instead of just 30 years. On a $330,000 foundation tier balance, the old 4% rule says $13,200 a year. His updated 4.7% says $15,510. That's not a reason to spend more recklessly. It's one respected researcher's revised opinion, not a guarantee, but it's a useful second gut check next to the pure dividend coverage math above, especially for anyone whose SCHD position ends up being part of a mixed portfolio with other holdings. Here's how you run this for yourself, instead of taking my numbers on faith. The SCHD freedom number. Take the monthly dividend income you want and multiply it by 383. That multiplier comes directly from today's roughly 3.1%. SCHD yield, 12 months, divided by that yield, gives you 383. Want $1,000 a month from SCHD alone? You need roughly $383,000 invested. Want $500 a month? About $191,500. That number moves every time SCHD's yield moves, so recheck the yield before you trust the output. It's the same rule I gave you about the price at the top of this video. If you'd rather not do that math by hand every time your number changes, there's a free dividend snowball calculator in the description that runs this exact formula for you. And if you want the full picture, tier by tier, with the DRIP reinvestment math and the qualified versus taxable dividend split, built in automatically instead of worked out on paper like we just did, that's exactly what the full dividend income toolkit handles. Let's pull this back together. 3 tiers. The starter tier at $1,000, proving the mechanism, not funding anything yet. The builder tier at $10,000, raised number, producing real but modest income today and real money over a couple of decades. The foundation tier at $100,000, already stacking up against the median American retirement account and combined with Social Security, covering a meaningful chunk of average household spending. We walk past the snapshot trap, judging your money by one frozen number instead of its trajectory. We ran the runway effect on all 3 tiers, conservative and historical. And we ran the dividend coverage test, the only test that actually answers whether your number is enough because it compares your income to your real spending, not to a stranger's opinion of what enough looks like. Ray ran his own numbers after that. $10,000 today, $200 a month historical growth rate, possibly $1,000 a month in dividend income by the time he's 66. Conservative growth rate, closer to $437. He's not behind. He's not ahead either. He's just standing in the builder tier, on a runway, with a formula now instead of a feeling. That's the whole difference between panicking over a balance and knowing exactly what it's building toward. The number in your head at the start of this video, the one telling you whether your money is enough, now you got the real one. You decide what to do with it. If you want the fuller picture of what it actually takes to live off dividends starting in your 40s or 50s, the complete framework, not just the SCHD piece, go watch How to Live Off Dividends starting at your 40s or 50s. You're not late. Here's the 2026 math. It's linked right there, and it's the natural next step from everything we just covered. One question before you go. Which tier are you actually standing in right now? Starter, builder, or foundation? Tell me in the comments and tell me your real number. I read every one.